What's up, guys? It's Q and A time for, well, all these questions were from yesterday, which was January 1st. Today's the 2nd, but had a bit of a wacky schedule yesterday, so I'm going to go ahead and do these today. Topic this week was digestion. So there's all kinds of different questions on digestion here, and people did a pretty good job giving me some specifics. So hopefully I can answer these the best I can. You know, with digestion, there's so much context. I mean, even if you tell me exactly what you're doing, without actually working with the person and seeing the trends and the patterns, it's kind of hard to give a definite answer, but I will do my best. Okay. How to deal with extreme gas while bulking. I tried an elimination diet, took out liquid egg whites, broccoli, onions, etc. Used digestive enzymes, you name it. It's just been unavoidable when... is it just unavoidable when you're eating in a caloric surplus? Okay. And then I ask for a little more context on this. Usually training days are about 650 plus grams of carbs, and those are eaten in breakfast, pre, intra, post, and last meal. 430 grams of protein, 5 whole food meals, and there are extra intra-workout and post-workout shakes. So first thing I would probably say is, I don't know how much lean body mass this person has, but first thing I would probably look at would be protein. 430 grams of protein, unless you're, close to 300 pounds or so, probably not necessary. That's potential. I mean, that's a big one that slows down digestion, especially when calories are high. Also, fat intake. Fat intake's not listed here, so I'm not really sure where that's at. Now, going back to the protein part of it, if that amount of protein is in fact necessary, and you can't swap more carbs or more fat for that protein, then you're going to want to look at making sure you have enough digestive acids to digest it. Betaine HCl would be a really good addition there, especially with that intake. That's just going to help with stomach acid moving everything through quicker, so there's not like the overlap between meal to meal to meal. And with this, you also need to look at, are you feeling normal in the mornings, like stomach's flat in the mornings and then it's bloated towards the end of the day, or are you actually waking up with a little bit of bloating? If that's the case, then there's probably an issue with actually just GI inflammation in general, SIBO or SIBO, however you want to say it. So intestinal inflammation, GI inflammation, and you need to address the inflammation aspect of it. Probably going to want to, with that kind of carb intake too, probably going to want to stick to stuff that digests really easily. I'm sure fiber intake's not an issue with that carb intake. It's going to be really easy to get enough fiber just because of so many carbohydrates. So I would probably stick to stuff that's going to digest a little bit faster, and so it moves through faster. So initially, I would probably try I would personally probably lower the protein and distribute those calories somewhere else. But aside from that, you could add betaine HCl, possibly lower meal frequency even. I know that seems weird, but try 4 meals per day plus your post-workout shake, and try to use the most calorically dense foods you can that digest easily. So, for your fat sources, use oils, especially things like MCTs, coconut oil, stuff that digest quickly. And for carbs, stick to stuff that's not overly fibrous. Make sure that you don't have, that's a common thing I see with someone eating 600 plus grams of carbs. They don't know what their fiber intake is, and they're actually eating like, 100 grams of fiber, 80 grams of fiber, which is just way too much. And of course, that's going to slow you down. It's going to draw a ton of water into the GI tract, depending on what kind of fiber you're eating and so on and so forth. Low FODMAP foods, make sure you're not getting a lot of those. That's going to draw more water in. Make sure you're not consuming water with meals. At the betaine, like I said. And I would also, if fat intake, depending on where that's at, you might want to increase bile acids through something like D-limonene or ox bile. Those are some really basic things that you could do, and it's probably where I would start. Okay. All right. Are there any supplements that are basic in the sense that you believe every person should be taking them, the bare minimum? I'm assuming they mean digestive supplements. So, not really. I mean, I would say that magnesium's a big one. A lot of people don't get enough magnesium in their diet, so supplemental magnesium through a quality form is a good idea. But aside from that, not really. I mean, there are a lot of them that I do include with most people, but there's nothing that's absolutely essential to like a person that has normal digestion, has good food selection, and yada yada yada. Probiotics, I could say, is semi-essential depending on the person, depending on what kind of food you're eating in your diet, whether or not you're getting them. That would probably be one that you will want them in the diet either via supplementation or food. So some way you need them in the diet. Gut flora is huge. I mean, I can't even express how important it is, not only in GI health, but brain health and just, overall immune health throughout the entire body. I know that was really vague, but it's kind of dependent on the person. What to do when digestion system has slowed down? So it just seems like ever since my last prep, I don't digest my foods as fast. So this is a super broad question. I can't begin to give a specific answer, but I would, in someone like this, if I don't know much about the person, would start with the basic stuff. Elimination diet, go through food intake, take out the typical culprits. Anything that's high allergen foods, high FODMAP foods, make sure fiber intake's correct. Look at bowels, consistency of bowels. Are they soft? Are they too hard? Are you constipated? Change fiber intake according to that. Look at gut flora, possibly adding in a probiotic, like I said. And beyond that, I mean, I would totally have to see, like I said, I would have to see the food, frequency of meals, and so on and so forth. But you could probably do a lot through elimination and making sure gut flora is good. And then beyond that point, if you're looking at, if it was after prep specifically, I would probably also check your hormones. I would see what your thyroid looks like. This can indirectly impact digestion, and sometimes quite a bit if people have downregulated thyroid function. There's probably going to be other symptoms that go along with that, but since you mentioned prep, I could think, the downregulated hormone thing kind of comes to mind. Potentially, maybe you didn't recover from prep correctly or something along those lines. All right. What ox bile and probiotic protocol do you give to someone's experiencing gastric distress? So, for those that don't know, ox bile, it will help with bile production, liver bile. It's going to help with fat digestion primarily. Bile has a few other functions with cholesterol and some other things, but it does help a lot with fat digestion, which for a lot of people that consume higher fat diets, you obviously have to have the bile production to meet the demands of the fat, which can be hard at times. So ox bile can work. Typically, a dose is about 500 milligrams, and you could use that up to every single meal. I don't really go above that with anyone if I'm using it. I don't really think that it's necessary. I mean, you could probably go up to 1,000, but 500 per meal is usually kind of the top end. Also use delimonene for this, which I've mentioned a million times, so that's another way to increase bile acids. Jarrow formula makes that 1,000 milligram caps, usually 2 to 3 days, plenty. And then the probiotics. So the biggest thing with the probiotics is really getting a product that's quality and that's actually has live bacteria. A lot of the products I find are just probably not shelf stable, or they're not stored correctly, or whatever it might be. And it's hard to tell that from just reading online unless they specifically talk about their manufacturing processes and their, storage processes and where you're ordering it from and so on and so forth. But what I can say is I've tried a lot of different brands and it seems like the Garden of Life brand is really, really good. I've even had people try up to the really potent probiotics like the VSL3, for example, which is really, that's primarily used for someone that has really bad gut microbiome. Maybe they had a long course of antibiotics or some kind of disease or infection that caused the microbiome to be thrown off. So they're going to use the higher dosed probiotic to restore function. But I've really found the Garden of Life products are really good, and I'm sure that has to do with the manufacturing. They're actually getting, you're actually getting what you pay for. Clear down to the 5 billion CFU product, which is a low dose product. It works really, really well. I would maybe check them out for probiotics. But like I said, at the end of the day, the biggest thing with probiotics is making sure you get actual live bacteria. And if you're not getting it through food, then get it through supplementation. Always start low with the probiotics, and normally we'll start people around 5 billion, and that's normally enough. And if we need to go higher, we can bump up a little higher. I would not go too high right out of the gate because you might cause more distress. All right, hiatal hernias and reflux. What's been your experience and how do you deal with it? Okay, so I don't personally have any experience with this, but the hiatal hernias can be caused partially by acid reflux, and then when you have a hiatal hernia, the acid reflux can actually be worse. So, I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword there. The biggest thing is you have to treat the reflux. I mean, there's really no way around that. So you have to treat the reflux just like you would treat acid reflux at any other time. Creating the right pH, stuff like apple cider vinegar, all the morning health drinks with your lemon water, apple cider vinegar. Is anything that's going to help treat the acid reflux is going to help. I mean, that's just the bottom line. As far as fixing the hiatal hernia, I mean, that's a different story. So I would say focus on treating the reflux as much as possible, and it will help. And it will also, it will also help not make that hernia worse. All right. Always have a constant state of feeling full. I take a digestive enzyme probiotic and sometimes do a shot of apple cider vinegar before each meal. I eat 6 meals a day, but never have that empty feeling and always feel distended or semi-bloated. Suggestions or hints to help with this? I don't think it's too much protein, but I've added more veggies and it's not helping. Also, so eating egg whites, chicken, beef, and a shake. Carbs, usually oats, and pasta, potatoes, bread. Sometimes have sometimes have some junk in there, blah blah blah. All right, got it. Averaging 3 hours between meals. Okay, so biggest thing here to me is it doesn't sound like there's a set intake. It sounds like there's kind of a set diet, but not really, like it's not totally set. But I would look at, okay, what are your actual protein, carbs, and fat? Plug in the diet to MyFitnessPal or My Macros Plus or whatever app you want to use, and it will, it's going to spit out and tell you exactly what you're eating. Let's see, are you getting too much protein? For one, so if the protein intake's excessively high, I would probably look at fixing that, and then look at do elimination diet with the foods. Take out the typical culprit foods. So in your case, I would probably get rid of the oats. I would probably get rid of the pasta or switch to gluten-free pasta. Probably get rid of the bread. Switch the PB to almond butter, and get rid of the milk. Switch it to almond milk, unsweetened almond milk. Start there. I mean, just see how you feel. Do it for a week. Switch those sources out. Do it for a week. See how you feel, and then reevaluate. I mean, that might in and of itself do the job. You can, if protein intake's pretty high, you can add the betaine HCl. It's about 600 milligrams per meal. That's what a typical capsule is, about 600, give or take, 650 maybe. Now Foods makes that. You can try that with each meal. Let's see. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, that's probably where I'd start. I'd probably start with the elimination and then maybe try the betaine HCl. I might even cut down to 5 meals a day and just give them a little more spread and see how you feel with the spread. It's going to give it a little more time to digest between meals. That way, there's not that much overlap in digestion. You actually gastric emptying can happen, everything can go out. And then I would also look at your fiber intake. Make sure that, I don't know what your intake is, but if you shoot for something around 8 to 10 ish grams of fiber per 1,000 calories, then you can do it that way. If you plug your macros in or plug your food in, do the tracking app, then you'll be able to see the calories pretty easily. Probiotic, like I said above, make sure you're taking a probiotic that actually has good potent bacteria. Look for that Garden of Life brand if you want to try that out. But you mentioned too, didn't get the bloat because you're going a lot longer between meals. So like I said, decrease meal frequency. 5 meals, I would just drop it to nothing drastic. I mean, you don't have to go down 3 meals or anything, but drop it to 5. After you see those macros, drop it to 5. Just keep your calorie intake the same, and then see how you feel with that. That in and of itself might be enough. And then obviously switching out the foods and yada yada yada. You also mentioned broccoli. That's another food that you could try swapping out. That's a big culprit as far as veggies go. So yeah, so there's several things you can do there. You might want to, that was kind of a jumbled response, you might want to bullet point that and then pick through those like 3 to 4 different things and see how you do. Okay. Another one, bromelain, however you say it, aids in digestion and is found in fresh pineapple but is destroyed when canned. Would this also happen with frozen pineapple? Okay, so the thing with freezing fruits and vegetables typically is a lot of time now it's flash frozen. I mean, that's what they use, and that, according to the literature, I don't know who publishes this. I don't know if it's the company that is freezing them or somebody else, but typically flash freezing preserves the nutrients pretty well. So with the flash freezing, you should be fine. I don't know if they've studied pineapples specifically, but a lot of other fruits and vegetables have been studied. Like I think there was one on strawberries or something, and it said that they retain more of their vitamin C content and one of the enzymes in them for when flash frozen versus canned. So yeah, I mean, I could assume from what I know that if you are getting frozen pineapple, that it's probably going to be fine. You should preserve the nutrients. Last one is okay. Biggest thing when I have digestion issues is bring food choices back down to the least processed: lean chicken, lean beef, veggies, brown white rice, etc. When even those things cause digestion issues, so you continue eliminating food sources or look elsewhere for possible contributing issues. That's a tough one, because if you really narrowed everything down, then yeah, you probably would look elsewhere. I'd probably look at total intake, look at the things like meal frequency. Is there overlap between digestion from each meal? Look at gut microbiome. Possibly look into some supplementation where needed. But I would, in a case like this, it's kind of depend on, are you off season? Are you contest prep? Is there stress present? Is there, is the calorie intake high? Is calorie intake low? Are you, so on and so forth. So, there is a ton of things, but I would, just based on the question, I would say I would probably look elsewhere. If especially if in the past that you went through elimination and all the food choices that you are using now are okay, then assuming you haven't built up some kind of intolerance to these foods, I would probably say look elsewhere, since they worked in the past. And you can look at, like I said, you can look at some of the things I talked about. And there's actually go up to question number, I think it was actually the first question. Go up to the first question, and there's a lot of other good insight there that you can use right on this question as well. So that is it for today, guys. We're at a little over 20 minutes, so I'm going to cut it off, and we will talk to you guys next week.